The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to another episode of Speaking with the Senator. I'm Senator Kevin Avard. I represent District 12. And we have another candidate here for District 2 for the Congressional seat.
Yes, sir.
And I want to welcome Steve Negron.
Senator, nice to see you.
Pleasure to meet you again. Yeah. And thank you for your service in the House. I know you're a state rep.
Yes.
And we want to get to know you.
Absolutely.
So I was driving up I think it was Spitbrook Road, and I noticed a Steve Negron sign by BAE.
Yes.
That's your sign.
That is my sign.
Yeah.
It is.
So, how's the race going?
Race is going very well. You know, it's a tremendous undertaking, but I have a great campaign staff, a lot of energy. We have a lot of young kids that are on our staff that are college kids, because that was always part of what we wanted to do, was reach out to the young voters. Good. So we have 5 college kids right now that are out there door knocking every day. And so it's really amazing to see the kind of energy, and they really just drag you across the finish line. What's
it like running for a congressional seat? I know how hard it is to run for a Senate seat, but you're covering a huge area.
Right.
So you're constantly on the go? Absolutely.
And, you know, when we go all the way up, we were just up in Colebrook over the weekend to the North Country, because people sometimes forget about them until it's, you know, opportunistic in August and they do their, you know, obligatory visit. And then we've been out in Westmoreland, the west part of the state. So it really is touching all the voters in CD2. And one of the things that we do find is there's a common thread of the people that we talk to about, you know, we call it this great national insecurity. You know, there are things that keep them up at night, and it doesn't matter where you're at, you know, in the North Country or the West or the South. And so we really, you know, understand that, you know, they don't believe they have a voice in Washington currently right now. You know, they're concerned about the national debt, the opioid issue, clearly, national security, immigration. So we talk about it, and it's really kind of fun, and there's a common thread when we talk to everybody across the district.
So the first time I heard your speech, or getting out there in the campaign, if you will, was at Falcino's Vineyard.
Yes.
Here in Hollis, by the way. It's a great vineyard.
Yes, it is.
They got great products there. I encourage you to, and they also sell meat. So they grow their own cows. Did that come out right?
Yes, it did. It's all right.
They feed their, whatever. It's all natural, and they're good. But, and I got to know a little bit about your background. You're in the military.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it's really funny. I'm retired Air Force. My wife, Terry, is retired Air Force as well. My dad's retired Air Force. We have over 109 years of military service in our family, and still counting, as our oldest son is on active duty right now with the Air Force Special Operations Command at Hurlburt Air Force Base in Florida. So I've been around patriots my whole life. You know, that's who I am. I've learned it's about service before self. Right. It's about giving back to this great country that had an opportunity for my father. A little bit about my military career. I was an ICBM, missile combat crew member. So in the height of the Cold War, I was one of the guys 90 feet underground under the plains of the Midwest. I had 10 nuclear weapons that I was responsible for in the event that, you know, that the president wanted us to launch. And it's very opportunistic right now and fortuitous about what's happening in North Korea,
right,
and what's happening in Iran. So I'm very familiar with some of those issues.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a great step. You know, I was writing a piece to some of my fellow missileers, and I said, you know, every day when we pull the alert, 2 o'clock in the morning, you hear the rush of the air through the equipment racks, and you hear the motor generator whirring, and you look these 10 green strategic alert lights that you know that there's more destructive power there than all the wars combined. And we had to be ready to do our job. And as a matter of fact, we used to say we had to be so good at our job that we never did it. Right. It's always about deterrence. And back then, we always knew who the bad guy was. You know, you just look east, and there was the big bear and the red flag and the stars and the sickle. But today, nuclear proliferation is a threat. And so what the president is doing is being able to neutralize, hopefully, and denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. And from a missileers perspective, I think that's a great thing. That's just one less country that we have to worry about.
Right. And you know, whether it's North Korea or Iran, here we have a president that's actually meeting with the top leader of North Korea, having a sit down, getting the discussions. Everybody says, hey, we need to talk. Well, he's doing it.
Absolutely, he is.
And yet, our previous president, which I'm still very alarmed with, that he gave hundreds of billions of dollars to the world's leading supplier for terrorists. Mm-hmm. Something doesn't jive. What are your thoughts about that?
Sure. Well, you know, being someone that has actually worked in the national security side of the military, not only as an ICBM guy, but we did a lot of policy. And, you know, every year the president puts out a national security strategy. A lot of people don't know about it, but it's 4 pillars that the president, for the United States to look at. And the very first one is protect the homeland. That's the very first pillar of the national security strategy. And so when you look at and you dive down into what it is that we're talking about, it is protecting us from other weapons of mass destruction to be used against the United States. And so what you see him doing here is actually putting into effect what the national strategy policy is. And it is about protecting this country. And, you know, there's an old saying, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And he is doing the right thing. He is bringing the North Korean president to the table. And I always tell people, we forget that on Easter Sunday, the CIA director, Director Pompeo, was in North Korea talking to President Un. And there's a reason why, in my opinion, why he was there. You know, we were all a little bit taken aback about rockets being launched and flying over South Korea and Japan. But there's a lot more to having the ability to deliver a nuclear capability. And I personally believe that we called a bluff. And we said, we know exactly what you don't have. We're working with the people to the west, which is China. And I think that was an impetus to bring it to the table. So the president has been moving some chess pieces around, much to the chagrin of other people who, you know, always want to take a pot shot at him.
Can you understand that? Why people are doing that? I mean, is the hatred so blind, so visceral that they can't see a good thing? I don't understand it.
Right. You know, when you look at this country, you know, we talk about the very, you know, those foundational words of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's really what he's trying to get back to, is to be able to have a country that still is that beacon of the world. And, you know, being a military dependent, I moved all over the world and I lived in foreign countries. And so it gives me an appreciation of really how great this country really is. And I think the president is doing it despite all of the obstacles that are thrown in his way to be able to do the things, whether it's immigration, whether it's the national security, whether it's, you know, trade, you know, the tax package that he passed in December. So he's doing those things that allow we here in this country to really have a great opportunity, just like everybody else that's gone before us.
Well, with all these pot shots that are being thrown and hurled at the president right now, I just don't understand it. With regards to our national security, it would seem to be a bipartisan situation. Do you know where Benghazi is?
Absolutely.
The reason I bring that up, there was an issue with your competitor, Representative Cusser. I don't think she understood what that's all about.
It is, and I think that's very telling. You know, when you look at what his responsibility is, you know, not only is he supposed to protect citizens here in the continental United States, but every citizen abroad. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a charge that the president has. And I believe when people don't fundamentally understand what the policies are that the president has, and you're a representative that's sitting in Congress, I think it's very telling about what's important to you. And I think it's important to her that she did what was being able to promote what she wanted to versus what promotes the good people of the 2nd Congressional.
Now, you have a business background?
I do, sir. Yes. So when I retired from the Air Force, I did what most military guys. I went and worked for large defense contractors. My last one was I was working with the largest defense contractor and ran the entire business development for the Northeast for them. And then I was putting my son to bed. He was 7 at the time, and he looked at me and he says, "Dad, I never see you." You know, and I said, "That's not why I retired." So I ended up hanging up my shingle. single in 2005. It's an engineering firm here in Nashua. It's called Negron LLC. We've been in business now 13 years. And it was an opportunity for me to have time to do the things that I do in my community, whether it was being a scoutmaster at Immaculate Conception Parish, or a wrestling coach at Nashua Catholic, or a Little League coach in a Cal Ripken League. It really was my attempt to have time with my children and be a fabric of my community.
All right. Which is definitely critical. Now, you're going to be in Washington a lot.
Yes.
So we're back to square one again. What's going on?
You know, it's really funny, and I have actually talked to some former congressional congressmen and asked him, what's the op tempo? What's it like? I mean, so you have a good feel of what you're really getting into. And he says it really goes based upon what the speaker battle with and what they want to do. But when he was in there, you know, they had votes on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's when session was in, and then you could leave Thursday night or Friday and come back home and do constituent services, and then go back on Monday and do it all over again. So I said, well, that's not a bad gig, you know. I mean, you work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you fly home, you're laying in your own bed, and you can do the things that I think that a congressman has to do, and that's be a listener, right? My grandmother used to tell me I have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and is to listen, you know, because when you're talking, you're not learning. And to go back and come back to the state that sent you to Washington to listen, because things change. You know, lives are dynamic, and to be able to come back and listen and hear what the new issues are so that I could be their voice in Washington is really exciting for me.
So how do you practice listening now?
Well, it's really funny. I learned a lot when I was in the election law committee, and that's really one of the reasons why this became such a desire for me, is that people, and you know too, Senator, people will drive 2.5 hours to have 5 minutes because they fundamentally believe that they have an opportunity to affect change, that they believe in the process. And as long as we have people willing to do that, then we should have representatives willing to do that on their behalf. To know that there are people in Washington, even though you can't drive however long it takes to drive to DC, but you can pick up a phone, you can talk to me, you can talk to a staffer, and still get your message across. And I think constituent service is something that's probably the most important thing that a representative does, and that's the term, it's representative. And to be able to be their voice in Washington, I think is probably one of the best things that I could possibly do.
Yeah, I find that, you know, being a chair of a committee on energy, for instance, or natural resources, fish and game, that, like you said, people drive 2-3 hours and they'll wait 2 or 3 hours. And very frustrating part is that if you have a hearing and you have to move that room or leave or shut it down, and somebody's driven that far,
right,
it's difficult on our part, because you want to make sure that everybody had that opportunity to hear. And you
Absolutely.
actually have that knot in your gut saying, wait, you're going to have to cut your speech to 3 minutes or to
Right.
4 minutes. And sometimes that's not fair. But other people like to hog time.
Sure.
You know?
Absolutely.
So, and the reason I think I wanted to camp out on this a little bit, because you mentioned that you want people feeling as though that they're not being heard.
Correct.
And that causes for great disillusionment in our government.
Yes.
And being a voice of the people, that's one of the lessons we teach the kids when they come to the Capitol. There's a 3-letter word we use. It's the word hey. Hey means I want your attention. I'm the servant. You're the boss.
Right.
And we need a generation of people that actually can believe that, and we have to restore trust.
Absolutely.
And listening.
You know, and that's part of what we said in our theme is, we're fighting for New Hampshire families and freedoms. That's what we're doing in this campaign.
Right.
And that helps. When you do that, it restores confidence, and confidence in a system that, they have this blind trust and belief. And I think it's taken a couple of hits. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to go back to them and say, we're working on your behalf. And I tell people, it's a temporary job. It's a temp job, for 2 years. If I do well, then you keep me. If not, then come back. That's what it's about. It's about being their public servant.
Now, right now, does it feel as though there's a balance in our delegate?
No. And when I talk to the governor often, and we've had many discussions, is that, he feels that he can't pick up the phone and call Washington and get any sort of help. And so that's why he has to go to Washington a lot. And so I joked with him, I said, give me your phone, I'll put Negron on speed dial, and all you have to do is call, because I'm an extension of the state. And so when you represent not only CD2, but New Hampshire as a whole, then you need to be able to be there to be able to answer and be responsive to the constituents.
So there are a few hot button issues out there these days. Obviously, there's these the shootings in the schools. There's the opioid crisis.
Yes,
obviously, there's Some social issues that, right to life, the transgender bathrooms, difficult issues. How are you going to handle all that up there?
Sure. Well, one of the things that people need to know about Steve Negron, there are some things that are fundamental to who I am, things that are non-negotiable. And as long as you're upfront and people know that about you, and that if you're going to cast a vote, you're casting it based on who you are and your principles and the principles of what the legislation is.
Truth in labeling.
Absolutely, right? So that they know, so that all of a sudden they don't come up and say, wait a second, that's not what he was telling me, And I think that has to be somebody who's grounded, because I think when somebody goes to Washington, and we even see it in the House, is that people will flow wherever the wind goes, and people want to know that I may disagree with you, but at least you're a man of your word,
right.
You're a man of conviction, and that's the thing that they can trust on, because maybe it's not on this vote that you voted the way they wanted you to, but there may be another one that they know that if I go to Steve and that I present my position and that he's with me, I know that I have a stalwart advocate for me, and that's what I think they look for.
Right, and I think that's the thing that we feel year after year after year at times is, you said you're going to do this, and there's that familiar kick in the gut. Well, what happened? Well, Washington. Well, you can't always blame things on Washington.
Right.
You can't blame all the things on the state. What's your record? Have you kept to your word? And I think it's surprising when people realize that, yeah, you're a conservative Republican, but I can talk to you. Right.
Having dialogue is a good thing. This discourse sometimes is out there. It's really funny. I often talk to a lot of members from Nashua that are of not my same political leaning. But it doesn't mean that we can't be collegial. It doesn't mean that we can't be at least, understanding of one another. I may not turn you and you may not turn me, but, having this bitterness, I think, is just counterproductive.
And you feel it a lot at times. You can just walk in the hall. But, I think personally, I've been able successfully to reach over and turn a frown into a smile sometimes, and that's important. And if you can bring that up to Washington, that's critical. How do you think the president's doing overall?
I'd give him an A on policy. Absolutely. I think, when you look at some of his accomplishments and some of the ones that don't get a lot of fanfare, he's with executive orders, he's undoing some of the things that the previous administration did. I think the tax package was huge. I think getting out of the Iran deal was huge. That was bad for a lot of reasons. I think bringing the North Koreans to the table to talk is huge, and I think what he's doing for the veterans and for the military is outstanding. They know they have a commander-in-chief that has their back and knows that they are the reason why we have a free and open society. And so I think those are the things that he's doing well, and it's everything he said he was going to do.
Immigration.
Yes.
Tough issue.
Very.
I know Nashua became a welcoming city.
Right.
What are your feelings about immigration?
Well, to me, it's very close because I'm the grandson of a Mexican immigrant, and my grandfather came across here from Mexico from a state called Michoacan in 1920. So I'm a staunch believer in immigration. I'm vehemently against illegal immigration. And the reason why I think immigration is such an issue is that it's a national security issue for me. I need to know who's in our borders. We grew up, we knew everybody in the neighborhood. We knew them, we went to school, went to church, we played Little League together. Nowadays, if we don't know who's in our country, to me, it's a national security. And so we need to get a handle on that. There has been discussion about what would I do if I got elected, would I be behind a wall? Absolutely, I would be behind the wall. And it's not just a wall to stop immigration. I like to say, Senator, that everybody wants to talk about citizenship. There's 185 ways to come into this country, 185 different ways through visas. You could be seasonal work, you can come here as educational, you can come here to get married. A friend of mine just brought a woman in from Colombia. She has to get married within 90 days. So it isn't about necessarily citizenship all the way, but it's about who's in our country and to figure out what their intent is, why are they here? And I think once we get a better handle on that, then we can attack the bigger issue. And the president said it the other day, he goes, there may come a time I'm going to have to just stop until I find out who's in my country, and then we'll start it again. I don't think the president's ever said he's against immigration, but he has the charter and the responsibility to protect the citizens in this country.
And I think there's been a false narrative created, and it's unfortunate that because we take a stand on illegal immigration, that we're against immigration, and that's just a false narrative.
Absolutely,
and it's a dividing point. However, I would like to see some reforms.
Yes.
I've worked with some folks here in New Hampshire, and one of the things that's really troubling, it takes 5 to 7 to 10 years to become a citizen. And sometimes attorneys don't exactly treat some of these people who are trying to come here the right way.
Right.
They take their money and they have to start all over again. And there's no way that these people can fight.
Right.
I think they need to streamline the people that want to come here to work, to contribute, to live the American dream in a way that is beneficial to them and to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that really is where part of the solution, the long-term goal is to fix that solution. So as a citizen, I'm telling you, I really think, because there are really good people out there that will contribute. I know people personally,
right,
that it's taken them forever. I've had to write them letters, but as a delegate in D.C., you can help streamline that.
Well, and I've thought about that often. When my grandfather passed away, in a traditional Hispanic family, the elder comes and lives with you. And so I talked at length with my grandmother as to why it was so important for my grandfather. And that was his choice to become a citizen. He could have just stayed here and gone back to Mexico, but he chose to do it. So, she used to tell me, that this country that we all love so much is that, the best thing about it is that we're civilized because we're a land of laws.
Yeah.
And, and if there is a law, you need to follow it. And if you're not following it, then there is a repercussion, And as long as we understand that we need to get back to what that is, nobody gets to short circuit the system. Nobody gets to jump to the head of line. Nobody gets to go and collect $200. Everybody knows that there's a process. And as long as it's understandable, and those individuals that then abuse the system to try to take money from people that are trying to come into this country, they should be, looked at and then, of course, charged accordingly. But it is that we're a land of laws, and people want to come here. We're still that beacon. Clearly, right. We're still that beacon of potential, of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And I think that once we get a handle on this, I think we're going to be that shining beacon even more.
Well, I agree. And it's this whole concept of lawlessness, and it seems as though there's a narrative out there that there's a set of laws for us little people, right. But the people up in the higher levels seem to be able to get away with destroying evidence,
right.
or computers, acid washing them. And I know this is sounding really partisan, but if you or I were to do things that, say, Hillary or Comey or Brennan, any of these people have done, we'd be in jail.
Yes, sir.
And that's a kick in the gut. And when people don't trust our FBI, our CIA, the national security, or our people that we set up there to protect us, we have a very serious problem.
You do, and I think it goes to a cultural issue of your word is your bond. Who are you? It's the way I was raised, the way my father raised me. That there's one thing that's enduring, and that's your name, and you need to keep it clean. And I think that sometimes people believe they're above the law. And that's what we see, where they think they can circumvent. I've had a clearance now for 35 years, and I've just been raised with it. There's a right way, and we always know what the right way is. There's never a time when we don't. It's just that people choose not to take the right path, because a lot of times the right path is the hardest path, but it's the best path. And I think people try to circumvent that and try to do things on their own, and that's when they get in trouble.
So what's the rest of the campaign look like? What are you out there? What are you doing?
Absolutely. Well, we are actually talking to people. We're letting people know that we're going to be fighting for the families and for the freedoms here in New Hampshire, that we're going to be their voice. We're knocking on doors every day, talking to them. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a group of women in Milford today, and we were there with some palm cards, and the lady says, "I don't need one." And I said, "Well, you sure?" She goes, "Yes, because one of your boys came by my house and dropped off a palm card, and I've never had anybody come to my house before and jump off a palm card."
Wow.
And I said, well, that's a testament to the young men that we have that are working on the campaign, but it's a testament to the grassroots organization that we have, that we're out there meeting the voters, and that was just a validation of our whole approach of what we're doing here. So we're really excited. We're going to be coming up on the big 4th of July trail, and we're going to be going all over the state. We're really excited about that, and it's about just rolling up your sleeves and getting after it. And so we're really excited.
So how do people get in touch with you? How do they look you up?
Sure. Well, first of all, if anybody's here in Nashua, my campaign office is on Spitbrook Road. It's right between Motel 6 and BAE. You can't see.
That's where I saw the sign.
That's right. You got this big sign there. You can always walk in. There's always somebody there, and come in and find out. We have a website, which is www.negron, Negron, the number 4, Congress.com. We'll go up there. We've got little video snippets of the positions that I have on some of the things that are of interest to them. And there's always a place to drop us a note, and we'll respond.
Wonderful. Do you want to make an appeal to the public now?
Well, I just tell you, this is about you. This is not my seat. This is your seat. It's about having a representative that understands that it is about listening, and it's not bringing some of that swamp water from D.C. back to Nashua or to New Hampshire. It's about bringing clear, crisp, blue New Hampshire water to Washington. So appreciate you going to the Negron4Congress.com. Check us out, and looking forward to meeting you on the trail.
All right, wonderful. And you got a Facebook page too? Did you say?
I do.
All
Yeah,
right.
so it's Steve Negron for Congress. Out there, lots of postings, a lot of pictures, a lot of happenings.
All right, wonderful. And thanks for coming on
Senator,
the show.
thank you so much.
We wish you the best. And if you want to get involved, you want to be part of a campaign or see how exciting that can be, get in touch with Representative Negron. And I can tell you that he's served very well in the House. And we're very proud that we have him running here for the Republican Party.
Yes, sir.
So until next week, thanks for watching Speaking with the Senator.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.